everybody. Kind of an interesting week for me. This was not the only late night show I appeared on this week. On Tuesday, I went to Brooklyn and appeared on an episode of Jimmy Kimmel's show. And let me just say, watching that show and what they do night in and night out up close, I can't believe the FCC is letting them get away with it. We had a joke about the Duolingo owl taking its own life. And I would say the most common correction this week is why would a bird with wings need a chair? And you know what, that's an unimpeachably good note. So then the question is, how should the owl have taken its own life? The way I would say any wildlife that wants to end it, best way to go about it, walk by RFK Jr. at mealtime. Someone wrote in the comments, I didn't know Seth Meyers' dog was dead. Which is weird at this point because it was in the New York Times twice. There was actual article in the New York Times, Frisbee, Seth Meyers' dog, and Andy Samberg's archenemy dies. That was a full article. And then it was just this week in the New York Times crossword puzzle. We talked about building furniture at IKEA and how IKEA is being hit. Okay, so we had NBC's Respect in the Workplace seminar this week, and during it, Wally, our cue card guy, fell asleep. And was audibly snoring through it. And now I know a lot of you might be saying, it feels like audibly snoring at a work event doesn't show respect in the workplace. But Wally doesn't know that because he keeps falling asleep. And so we went to HR and said, what should we do about this? They said, let him sleep. And we said, let him sleep. And they said, yeah, let him sleep. We think he just needs the sleep. So I'm gonna try to get through this quickly and quietly. IKEA, we said IKEA makes furniture. And someone wrote in and says, IKEA doesn't make furniture. They trick us into making furniture. We made a joke about it. Bad Bunny hosting the Super Bowl halftime show, and then in a closer look, the joke was, and in the Puppy Bowl, the halftime performer is going to be an actual Bad Bunny. And someone wrote in and said, based on how puppies behave around bunnies, what you'd have at the end of that halftime show would be a dead bunny. And not just a dead bunny, you know what else you'd have? A huge Nielsen number. Someone wrote in, Seth is not like a tired old queen. He's not regal enough. So a hag? Last week was our 150th episode. I didn't make a big deal out of it. But it was very nice that someone wrote in, congratulations, Seth Meyers, on 15 episodes. And obviously, when I read that at first, I thought it was a typo. But then I kept reading, Shoemaker. Congratulations, Seth Meyers on 15 episodes. I know there've been 150, but only 15 deserve congratulations. I keep talking about getting my own flavor for Ben and Jerry's. And someone said, what about, because there's Breyer's ice cream. That already rhymes with your last name. They were like, what if it's just Seth Breyer's? And it's just too on the nose. So, apologies for